Good morning, everybody, and welcome into the best damn pod in the land. I'm your host, Chad Stryker. With me, as always, Dan Divjak. Dan, it's Friday. How you doing?
Friday. I'm good, man. Feel good. I'm ready for the weekend. We're gonna hit the zoo this weekend. Supposed to have nice weather. Gonna go to Game 4 of the Preds series on Sunday. They're currently tied up one game apiece, so yeah, it's gonna be a fun weekend. How about you?
Well, so baseball season is in full effect for us. So, my son and daughter on two teams, and I'm coaching, and so busy, but not crazy busy. But I'm looking forward to it, and they both are enjoying it, so that's nice. So yeah, baseball this weekend.
Yeah, Mila will be 2 in June, and I'm itching to get her on skates. So
I get it.
she's got
So
she's got the mean streak in her that's needed for hockey. So we'll see how it goes.
fantastic, man, fantastic. So before we forget, hit that like and subscribe button. You guys have been doing great. We appreciate your audience. I know Dan has become internet Buckeye famous lately with some of his hot takes.
Yeah, Johnny had fun with the episode between Corey and I. He put out his little snippet, drawing up some spice, but it's all good. It's all fun and games. So
yeah, I think it's fun. I enjoy it. And the great thing about what you put out and what I put out is we know where it came from and we know how true it is.
yeah,
So it's not like we're just putting stuff out there in the ether for fun.
yeah. I had one guy that just constantly challenged me, and I'm just like, dude, like, I don't like. I almost felt like he was calling me a liar, and he's like, well, I'm not calling you a liar. Because I think you were told that information. I just don't think it's true. I'm like, okay,
Uh,
yeah, all right.
okay.
It is what it is.
Well, I have a surprise for you.
Uh-oh.
And so we're going to play a game. It's called Tell Me the Difference Between the Two Pictures.
Oh, okay. Am I gonna have to put on my glasses? Go ahead.
I hope I made the picture big enough.
I like surprises.
All right. So tell me the difference between these two pictures.
One guy really, really wishes he would have come to Ohio State. Is that your prediction? Is that your prediction?
Well, I was going to say they're the same picture.
Okay.
I think that's how it ends up.
Yeah, I mean, Manziel he's what, 3 documentaries deep at this point. I think JJ's a little bit of a weirdo, but he seems to have his head on straight compared to Johnny was just a mess. But you're saying their careers are going to mirror each other as far as success on the field?
Let me say it like this: is Mandel, made some highlight reel plays, made some really great throws at times, and so did JJ McCarthy, and they relied on their legs a lot. In the NFL, you saw how that worked out for Johnny Manziel, and I have a feeling that JJ McCarthy, their skill sets mirror each other so much that if he tries to do things the way that he did in college, it's not going to go well.
Yeah. I try to be unbiased and reasonable. And there is a part of me that buys into he did what was asked of him.
Mm.
And I find it really, really hard to believe that he would get drafted as high as he did if he did not display the ability to make all the throws that are needed, which we didn't necessarily see during his career because he just wasn't asked to do it. So I do subscribe to that a little bit. You know, if the Browns had drafted him, I'd root for him, but they didn't, so I won't.
Well, I will say it, and I'm not a huge NFL guy. I'm just not. Like I root for the Browns, but if you follow me on Twitter at all, you know it's pretty much the Cleveland Indians and the Ohio State Buckeyes. Um, and I do a little bit of the Cavs because my son loves basketball, and my brother too. They love the Cavs. Um, but I think if there was, I think JJ McCarthy ended up in a good spot of an organization for him in Minnesota. So if he, if he's going to have success, he did land in a good spot. So
Yeah, I think Minnesota is an underrated organization from an aspect as to how they're run. You know, they've had longevity for the most part. They're not going through a new coach every 2 years. Um, they've been able to hang on to their best players, you know, within salary cap restraints. Um, I think they're a well run organization. They just haven't been able to break through yet. If they ever break through, that town will explode.
100%. So we're going to get into our actual show. So sorry about the surprise, Dan, but I thought of this morning and I was just having a little fun with it. So so this is something I know you're passionate about, and I'm I'm neither here nor there with it. But they're going to give Reggie Bush his Heisman Trophy back. Where do you stand on that? How do you feel? And then, if you could, we'll pick up. I have a little segment on this too, but should the NCAA give the 2010 Ohio State team their wins back if we're handing Reggie Bush his Heisman Trophy back?
Well, a couple things there. As far as Reggie Bush getting his Heisman back, it was. I think they would have done it years ago. They were just waiting for OJ to die, so that they didn't have to give him his back.
Okay.
Um, I think there's an important distinction to make here. The Heisman, whatever they call them, I mean, it's separate from the NCAA. The NCAA did not take Reggie's Heisman away from him. The Heisman
organization. Oh, the Heisman, yeah.
Yeah, the Heisman organization did. They're completely separate entities. So, and I know I posted that I'm 100% on board with Terrell Pryor's post or the Tattoo 5, the post they made about getting it back. But I just don't think that's realistic. I mean, those were penalties handed out by the NCAA, and I think that's opening up a can of worms that it's just not going to happen. You know, and I don't think that we can. I mean, listen, as much as we hated that, I think we hated the way it was handled more than we hated the actual event. We should have taken the bowl ban that year. You know, there is something to be said that the NCAA apparently, and this is from the internet world, that the NCAA is the one that encouraged the Sugar Bowl to let those guys play for whatever reason. I don't know how true that is. That could make it a little bit more interesting of a conversation if true. But yeah, I think we're more upset about the way it was handled internally than anything else. I mean, they're Tressel. I love the vest, but he did legitimately try to hide that and protect his players and things like that. It's just ironic that what we've turned into in this day and age, that something like that would have resulted in what it did. But I don't see the NCAA going back and reinstating anything because of today's world.
Okay, so my 2 cents on it is, I don't know. Do you follow Chim DeChequa, the former Buckeye DB, on Twitter? Okay.
Yeah. Catch him on YouTube too with Bryant.
Yeah. So he had made a statement that the Ohio State got their money, the NCAA got their money, the networks got their money. So give the kids their, because they beat Arkansas, give the kids their wins back, more or less.
Yeah.
Everybody made out with it except for that group. And then secondly, I agree with you that they're not going to do that. And do you know why I agree with you? Do you want to know? Because I'm a giant conspiracy theorist.
Because I'm right?
Well, that, and if they do that, technically they're going to have to give Ohio State a shared title in 2012 because they were undefeated and had to take that bowl ban then. And so Alabama would have never played Notre Dame. You know, like you can't rewrite
Yeah.
history, but we
Yeah,
were
exactly.
undefeated. We were
Yeah.
undefeated. And so
Yeah.
I'm going to claim it, just like Michigan claims all their fake titles. So I'm going to claim that. I'm going to hang the banner back here.
Isn't there a banner in the Woody?
12-0, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, who knows? I mean, somebody can make a counter argument that, you know what, if they were eligible for the title, would they have slipped up along the way because of the pressure, right? They were kind of playing with house money. And that team had no business going 12-0. You know, I mean, that was a masterful coaching job by Urban, his first year there. A lot of close games.
Mm-hmm.
You know, some people could say, well, they would have choked along the way if they knew that they could have played for the title, because that happened in subsequent years with Urban.
Yeah, I remember a lot about that year, in particular, just because I got to go to so many games that year. I think I went to every home game, and it was Braxton Miller or Philly Brown, one of the two making plays, and then an occasional, something happened occasionally elsewhere. But if it wasn't Philly Brown or Braxton Miller, the offense was slow going.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, what if?
Yep. All right. So, I wanted to expand on this, but I think we're going to save it for another show. And so I kept it really small. What position group on offense do you think will take the biggest leap this year to, like, I'll call it ultra stud status? And if you don't mind, I'll go first because
Yeah, go ahead.
I'll get it out of the way. Because I know you are really good at looking at the long term plays of some of these guys. I'm going with quarterback because, and this is a big because, we had such a drop off with McCord after watching Stroud and Fields and Haskins. It's time for Ryan Day, the quarterback whisperer, to like arrive again. And so I think we see that with the quarterbacks this year.
I don't disagree. That was one of the two groups I was torn between. I'm going to go with the running backs, just because obviously the addition of Quinshawn. I think Trey is on a mission coming back for an extra year to prove that he can stay healthy, and then the chip factor. I think that he's going to scheme these guys up, and I just think our running game is going to be explosive, which is what we've lacked, other than a few highlights over the last couple of years. You know, we've really battled with injuries the last
Mm-hmm.
couple of years. So I think the top three. I mean, Chip was a nice story, you know. Mayan, you love the kid's, you know, aggressive nature to run, but he wasn't a highlight waiting to happen, and neither was Chip for that matter, right? I mean, I think we've got our top two guys are the biggest highlights in the country right now as far as running backs go, and then I think James People is going to play a really nice role, and I think people are going to love him. So I'll go running backs.
I like it. I like it. I don't disagree with you at all. I think that I could have went the same way, and I don't want to leave out Sam Williams-Dixon because you and I saw him, break a couple at the spring game. He looked. I mean, it was against the threes, but he's got a burst. He's got a burst. So
I just don't know how many touches he's going to get in meaningful minutes.
Meaningful minutes, fair. But we're going to go over the schedule in a little bit, and I think there's some run for him.
Yeah.
All right. Same question to you. I'll let you go first, Dan, on defense. What group makes the biggest leap this year?
So I was really torn between linebackers and the defensive line. I'm going to go with the defensive line because I think we're going to turn them loose a little bit more than we have in the past. I think we're going to see a little bit more of what we saw against Missouri and what we saw at the end of the year when the sack total started going up. I think we're going to not do that that cage rush nearly as much as we have in the past. I think we're going to turn those guys loose. I wouldn't be surprised if there were some conversations about that when these kids said, hey, we're coming back, but, listen, stats matter when it comes to the draft, and this needs to be a win-win. Maybe not, but I wouldn't be surprised. But I think they're going to turn the defensive line loose this year. And I think our interior defensive line is going to get a lot more pressure on the quarterback than in years past.
Well, you know how I feel about the defensive tackles. I think everybody went into spring thinking we needed to go add one, and I kept saying, whoa, wait a minute. So that's a good one. I was with you. I was torn between a D-line and linebackers, but I went with linebacker because this is no knock on Steel Chambers, but he was a converted running back. Tommy Eichenberg played his guts out, and he was an upgrade probably over the previous couple years. But I think with James Laurinaitis, full-time linebacker coach, I expect him to, he's got elite talent now in Sonny Styles and CJ Hicks. And it's easy to forget because Cody Simon's been around for a while. He came in class of 2020. He was a high 4-star, top 100 player, number 1 linebacker in New Jersey, number 6 nationally. He ran a 4.53 40. And if you go back and read the stuff about him, accelerates to top speed in a few steps, great body control, sound tackler, diagnosis plays well, great closing speed. So it's easy to forget about him because he's kind of been the odd man out because he was technically recruited to be a will on the outside of a 4-3 under the Kerry Combs defense. And he started under the Kerry Combs defense in 2021 too. And so I always thought he was going to be just fine. I went back through some tweets. I am even like some of my post game notes that I would post on Twitter. Simon's going to be fine. And so I think this is his year to show out. I know stars sometimes don't matter, but I do think that Laurinaitis has a lot to work with athletically as far as talent goes that maybe, well, definitely we haven't had in years past just because of the freak nature of CJ Hicks and Sonny Styles. So I think that elevates the talent.
Yeah, no, absolutely. They're certainly going to be more talented than what we've seen. And if we turn them loose, then yeah, I can be on board with that.
Okay. All right, we're going to have a little fun now, folks. Dan and I've been waiting to do this. I've kind of been biding my time just a little bit because I wanted to wait for some of the spring practices to be over and kind of see what each of the teams looked like throughout the Big Ten, and then especially the new Big Ten with Oregon, USC, some of the Washington, and so we're going to play win-loss on our schedule, on our 2024 schedule for Ohio State, and I even threw some scores in just for fun. So Dan, you don't have to. I just did it just to see how close I get for grins. And so we open up August 31st, 2024 against Akron at home in the Horseshoe. I'll let you go first.
I was really torn about this one, but I'm going to go ahead and put that in the win column. I wouldn't be surprised if we don't hang 70 on those guys. Now, it's an in-state school, and we kind of have a history of not doing that, but I wouldn't be surprised.
Okay. Well, I thought this one was going to be a close one. I thought it might go down to the wire. I think Ohio State wins 66-3.
You're going to give them a field goal, huh?
I'll give them a field goal late.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. September 7th, Western Michigan University on the banks of the Olentangy. What do you got?
Now, I will say we'll hang 70 on this one because it's a Michigan school. I just think our offense is going to be so dynamic, and I think that I think those guys are going to really want to make a statement and create some momentum at the beginning of the year.
Mm-hmm.
And I just think we're going to be way more explosive in the run game, and I think we're going to be able to hit downfield shots this year at the beginning of the year, unlike the beginning of last year.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, it's obviously it's not going to be close. I don't like the early bye though. I don't.
Mm-mm. Okay, so I have them winning, going away, and I'm calling for their first shutout of the year, 52-0.
Okay.
Yeah. So we skip a week, so we got a bye week, and Marshall comes to town, and so I have a soft spot for the Thundering Herd. Always have.
Great movie.
Yes, it was. But it really had nothing to do with that. Just my dad he had a couple teams that he like secondarily rooted for, and Marshall was one of them. And so I have a soft spot for them. But what do you got?
I mean, it's in the win column. I don't know enough about them to know whether or not they're going to be good or not. I thought they were in the MAC. What conference are they in? Are they in the American?
MAC.
Okay, I looked at the standings prior to this to see, and I didn't see them in there. So
well, maybe they're not in the MAC anymore.
I might have missed it. Are they Conference USA? But obviously, big win. While you're looking for that, I want to back up.
Yeah, you were right. USA Conference or Sun Belt Conference. Yeah, Sun Belt Conference.
Or Sun Belt now. Okay. Yeah. How do the quarterbacks get handled in these first? Let's go to the first two games because I see an obvious way to handle them if there is not a clear separation. But I want to see your thoughts on it.
I think you start game one and start game two.
Yeah. And do you let that one play the majority of it?
I'd let them
go. Do you like going first half, second half?
No, I'd let them go till 8 minutes in the third quarter if you're up by 40. Both of them.
Okay. And then put the other one in?
No,
or do you go to number 3?
Yeah, I'd go to Keenholz or Sayin. Yeah. And keep those two guys fresh. Well, so here I was if you do that, I feel like we're going right back to our frustration with the spring game where they rolled the quarterbacks, and then so you got some guy out there with the threes, and it's not an equal and accurate representation of the two. So go out if there's no separation. Game one, Devin, go start against Akron, play, get our lead, get us comfortable. Pull them, let them rest. Same with Western Michigan. Will go out, get us a lead, get us comfortable, let them rest. And then you have equal. You can see what you have. That's just because if you roll Will out there with 8 minutes in the third quarter, up 44-0 with our twos. Against Akron's whatever, some twos, some ones, whatever, that's not an equal representation. And if you flip it, it's the same way. So if Will starts game two and then you throw Dev out there midway through the third quarter up 44-0, again, not an equal representation because number one, Western Michigan's will at that point to like even try is done. They're just out there, cashing their paycheck. Essentially because they get paid to come play us, and same with Akron. So not an equal representation. That's how I felt walking away from the spring game.
Yeah. Well, I need to follow all that up with that. I have absolutely zero faith it'll be handled that way. And here we are talking about the quarterbacks the same way we did last year. I mean, everybody was like, let them split the first two games and then let the, whoever looks better get that third game to be settled in for Notre Dame. And, we're basically at the same spot that we were last year. So I have no faith that Ryan would handle it that way. But who knows?
Well, so you have
I'm really counting on Chip to have a huge influence on the way this works.
You have 5 games in 6 weeks at the start of the season before Oregon. It's not like last year where you had Notre Dame really early. And I talked to Ryan Day this morning, and that was his plan to split them. So,
did you?
Yeah, on the phone. Do you want me to call him right now? Beep boop beep
yeah,
boop 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 boop.
Yeah, that's funny.
All right, so go ahead.
Well, I already got a feeling as to how you're going to be looking at these next 2 games, but I feel a little bit differently, but go ahead.
Well, Michigan State, because of the way the amount of transfers and stuff, now they do have a dynamic quarterback. So I think that he personally, if we didn't have the defense that we have, could keep them in the game. But that their secondary is cooked, man, like cooked. So they just had so many transfers.
Yeah.
So I put it in a win column. Now I do have it close, closer than some of the other ones. I had it 38-10 and pulling away late. I put a note.
Wow. So you had a little bit of a struggle.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting. Okay. I do think they're going to be. I think they're going to have. It's early in the year. I don't know what their first 2 or 3 games look like, but I'm assuming they're fairly soft. So they might have a little bit of confidence. I think Jonathan Smith is a great coach.
He's a great coach.
Obviously, they just don't have the horsepower to keep up with us. I don't know if we have to pull away late. This team's just so damn loaded. And I think the defense is going to be so good. I think we're going to see a lot more turnovers this year on the defensive side of the ball, which means we get that many more shots on the offensive side of the ball. And I just, I don't want to be that arrogant Ohio State fan, but there's just no reason whatsoever we should be struggling with teams like this. And up until last year, Ryan, that's one thing Ryan's beaten the teams that we were supposed to beat, and he's beaten them pretty handily.
Mm-hmm.
And he doesn't have a problem opening it up in the first half to make that happen.
Right.
So we'll see.
Well, and I should probably, when I say late, I'm talking into the third quarter. I'm not saying we're, scoring 10 points in the last 7 minutes of the fourth quarter. That's not
right.
Yeah. Iowa, much of the same. I think Iowa's defense can keep them around, but just like last year, Iowa, or was it 2 years ago? Iowa kind of kept them in the game. Their defense did. They had some turnovers and a couple sacks, and but I think we win going away. And I had it 35-9.
Wow. Okay, you got these scores a little bit. You got our points a little bit lower than I would think with this offense. I'd be a little bit more worried about this game if it was in Iowa and Urban was our coach. But again, and this is the game that, I was going to make the comment first, but I let it out of the bag a little bit earlier. But, Ryan has beaten the teams that he's supposed to beat, right? His knock is that he hasn't beaten the big games. He hasn't won the big games. So I'm not, Iowa's defense, it's going to be Iowa's defense. They're always going to be really, really strong. Who knows what they're going to have at quarterback. They do have a new OC, so, let's see what happens. But they don't have the horses to stay up with us. If our guys are, interested and engaged, it'll be over at halftime.
Is Cade McNamara still at Iowa?
Yep.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah.
All right. So we move on to October 12th at Eugene against Oregon in those really crazy uniforms they wear.
Well, the first thing we need to know is what is this game? Does Fox really screw over Oregon and do a big noon kickoff?
Oh, they're going to do a big noon kickoff. They are. They have the rights.
That's a 9 a.m. kickoff in Oregon.
Mm-hmm.
I don't see them doing that. Or is it 10 o'clock?
No, it's 3 hours.
Is it 3 hours that time of the year?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I don't see them doing that. I'm gonna go and say that I don't think it's a night game, because if you really truly don't want to start until you're under the lights out there, then it's way too late for the East Coast. I'm gonna say it's the 3:30 CBS game.
Boo. That's my least favorite time slot. I hate 3:30 games.
Well, it's 2:30 here.
Yeah. So someday, on our pod, I'll explain why. Because I actually, believe it or not, actually replied in multiple replies about why I hate that time slot on Twitter. And I don't do that much. But you know, it's okay. Anyways, yeah. So I don't know what to think. I have us getting the win, but close. I've got it 31-20 because I think our defense wins the game for us.
Yeah, so defense travels,
Yeah.
which is good. Obviously, going to be our first real test
Yeah.
for the offense. It's going to be our first real test for the defense, for that matter. But I think them coming into the shoe in CJ's first year is still fresh enough on a lot of these guys' minds. A lot of these guys were there. I think the hype surrounding it is going to have everybody fully engaged. Obviously, I don't 20. I mean, 20 points is more than I thought anybody would score on us all year. So, defense travels. I don't see this being a shootout like the Oregon Washington games were last year.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that those games were shootouts, I don't know how much better Oregon's defense is going to be this year. I think we win this a little bit more comfortably than people think. I wouldn't be surprised if we don't win this like 31-10.
Closer to the season when we do it
35-10.
Closer to the season when we do our breakdown of the games. So the reason I gave 20 is strictly because of Dylan Gabriel's ability to move. And
you thinking some late backdoor touchdowns?
Yeah.
We'll see. I think our defense is on the field the full time for this game. I think they're in it till the end. I think this is where we might see the rotation tighten up a little bit more for the first time during the year. And then the $1 million question, who's at quarterback?
Fair. So we have that game bye week, which is nice. So you can kind of.
No, I don't like it.
Okay.
Because it's either going to be 2 glorious weeks and you're going to be wanting them to get back on the field so you can see them play again, or it's going to be the 2 longest weeks of the season. If for some reason we trip up. There's a lot of people that have us losing this game.
I don't know.
Nationally. A lot of people nationally have us losing this game.
So.
And we need to be careful because I know, there's talk of, there's going to be a rematch. Like we could play Oregon 3 times this year, this week, the Big Ten championship and that. But with 17 teams now, like if you don't want to fall into tiebreakers with, 3 other 1-loss teams.
Mm-mm.
We need to be in the driver's seat here, and we need to win this game, or else, we realistically could miss the Big Ten championship with 1 loss.
Fair. So the reason I think, and I have to be really careful about this, but I don't have a ton of confidence in Oregon's defensive line being able to stop our running game. And if you go back to historically, even so like you talked about the shootout with Washington last year, the in the trenches is where we win. And that's how Michigan has won against us the last couple of years, is they've won in the trenches, besides the fact that they had all of our plays and were cheating. Anyways, bye week, Ohio State hosts Nebraska. I like it much better when we host Nebraska. So they go to Oregon, they come home, they're home for a couple of weeks, you get to breathe. Hopefully we're on a high. Nebraska comes to town. Matt Rule's there now. He's done some nice things. We get to throw some spitballs at Dylan Raiola. How you feeling?
I mean, it's a win. One thing that stuck out to me when I looked at this schedule, I didn't necessarily see any trap games, but I did see teams that are going to be better than they were last year. And Nebraska, we already talked about Michigan State. I think Nebraska is going to be one of those teams. I think Matt Rule is an absolutely fantastic coach.
Mm-hmm.
As a matter of fact, I would have him on the short list for Ohio State if the job ever opened up again. That's how much I think of Matt Rule. I do think they're going to be greatly improved in their second season. This is the 6th or 7th game for them. So if Raiola starts from the beginning, he's going to be settled in a little bit more. I do think it's going to be open season on that kid if he comes into the shoe and starts that game. I think that'll get the attention, but there's a lot to be worried about in this game. When, depending on whether we come off of Oregon with a win or a loss, if we come up with a loss, they're probably a little bit more engaged than if we come off with a win. But you're also staring at a night game at Happy Valley.
Oh, that'll be a big noon game. They did it. Fox is big noon. I don't know.
I'd have to look to see at the rest of the schedule and see what other games are. There's more big matchups now in the Big Ten, right?
Yeah,
to choose from. So we'll have to see. As long as it's not a Peacock game that you got to pay for, I'll be fine with it. Peacock. That was Purdue last year.
Yeah, well, and that was miserable too because Peacock quit working for me. So we've had Peacock, like we have it because I watch The Office, and it's one of my ways to relax. Yeah. Anyways, so yeah, I got us coming away from Nebraska with a win comfortably, and I probably went a little bigger than I normally would, but I was feeling our Buckeyes, I guess, a little bit. 52-6.
Wow. Okay.
And we roll into Happy Valley, like you mentioned. I still think it's going to be a big noon kickoff, just like it was a couple years ago there, where they hyped the game all up, and it was supposed to be this huge close mashup, and then JT Tuimoloau basically disrupted everything and caught intercepted 2 passes and sacks and fumbles and single-handedly won the football game more or less for us. But what do you think?
There's 3 things you can count on in life: death, taxes, and James Franklin losing to Ohio State and Michigan. So I actually think Penn State's probably going to take a little bit of a step back this year. I think Drew Allers, I don't know what's wrong with the kid, but I know there's this talk that he's going to be a first-round pick next year because he's going to have this big rebound year and everything else like that. And I saw his high school quarterback coach on some podcast last year, and he really spoke highly of him going into the Penn State game, and then he looked the way that he did. I don't think they're going to be better skill-wise this year. I think they're going to be, especially on the outside with receivers, I think their skill has gone down.
They have Julian Fleming.
Julian Fleming was fighting for a starting spot. Like, he wasn't even penciled in as a starter until their best receiver just transferred. So that kind of tells you something about their skill position. And if Drew Aller looks anything like he did in the spring game, man, like I don't know if this game is close.
Okay.
Let's put it this way. If we're assuming our defense is going to be better, and granted it's on the road this year compared to last year, but if our defense is going to be better, our defense shut them down last year. And our offense should be better. I mean, that was a 20-10 game. We should have won that game by 3 or 4 touchdowns.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's as close as it has been in the past.
I was just looking to make sure Katron Allen was still there too.
The receiver?
Running back.
Yeah, him and Singletary are still there, I think.
Singleton.
Right? Singleton, whatever. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So I have us winning, but you probably won't like the score. I have us winning 35-31.
No way are they scoring 31 points on us next year.
Okay.
No way. No one is scoring 31 points on us next year.
Okay. Well,
go ahead and bookmark this.
Penn State just always, I don't know, they always give us a little bit of trouble. So, all right, moving on. November 9th, Purdue. I call them Purdue. I have them winning, going away 42-13.
Yeah, again, I mean, I'll be shocked if they put 13 points on us up at the shoe. I mean, there's nothing to be excited about for Purdue.
Yeah. November 16th at Northwestern at Soldier Field or Wrigley.
No.
Is it Wrigley?
Well, it was supposed to be Wrigley, but they announced recently that they're going to be playing their home games at their outdoor practice facility, which is like right there on the lake.
Okay.
Some lake or river.
So it could be cold and snowy and yucky.
Yeah, and Northwestern this is one of the teams I was talking about that I think they're going to be greatly improved. They actually they went to a bowl last year, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I don't think people expected them to win a single game.
No.
So I think the atmosphere is going to be really. This is a game that I think is just going to be like 2 years ago with CJ, and with that driving wind. I just think this is going to be a wonky game. I think this is the one where we come away from and say, like, what the hell was that?
Mm-hmm.
Just the atmosphere, the environment, the weather, potential weather. I think it's going to be a weird one. I mean, obviously we win, and they may not score on us, but I just think it's going to be one of those games where it's really just going to be happy it's over.
Yeah, so Chris Fowler always likes to call it Sleepy Evanston, and it's always stuck with me, Sleepy Evanston, Illinois, because it is. It's you kind of sleepwalk there. It's a quiet little town. It's a college town. There's not much going on, and I agree with you. I think that's one that it's a weird game. I don't know what it looks like, but I had us winning 24-6. So not a ton of offense. I think they get a couple long field goals. You never know what you're going to get with the weather in mid-November. So yeah, I'm with you. And we roll back home. Indiana comes into the Horseshoe as we prep for Michigan week. So all eyes probably on Michigan. Indiana, I do expect them to be improved. I really like their coach. I just don't think they have enough firepower or talent to really make this a football game.
No, I think it's going to be a blowout. I do think they're going to be an improved football team. I also like his coach. I think you just be ready for it. That clip from when his initial press conference is going to get played on a loop all week long. On Twitter and Instagram and everything, about where he said what he said, screw Purdue and Ohio State and Michigan too.
Yep.
Or something like that.
Cignetti. Yeah.
Cignetti. I mean, I really like the guy, but it's not the only, people are going to say it's the week before the Michigan game, so they might be looking ahead, but I don't. Again, Ryan's done a really good job with that.
And then November 30th, Michigan.
I think we're going to absolutely curb stomp these guys this year. I really, really do.
You're talking about Michigan?
I think that, yeah, absolutely. I don't even think it's going to be close.
So I sat back because I am a homer, and I think about this a little bit. And, I did watch some of the Cheaters spring game, and Michigan's coming to the Horseshoe end of November. Retribution on our mind. Really talented defense. 62-0. Bookmark it.
Listen,
bitches.
One thing I will say, if Ryan could do that, he would do that.
That's what I'm saying.
I do think that, their starting defense is solid. Like they got, I want to say 9 of 11 guys on defense back. Okay. Now their depth is already taking a hit. Rod Moore's out for the year. Keon Babb transferred to Bama. They just lost a cornerback that some people say he was fighting for a starting spot. Other people say he was 3rd or 4th.
He was supposed to be the number 2 corner, from what Scam Webb said.
I've heard that, and then I've heard that he was going to be 3rd or 4th. So, their depth is nowhere near what it was. So if they have a few guys get hurt, I think that they could be in a lot of trouble. Offensively, if they don't figure out something at quarterback, I wouldn't be surprised if we don't see 2 or 3 quarterbacks in this game for them.
Well, I have a
Yeah.
sincere question for you because I don't know the answer. And so, um, and I was thinking about this in regards to Michigan. And it actually goes back to the Pete Thamilton thing with Will Johnson transferring. And if you don't know, that's fine. We can come back and talk about it another time. So if, let's say in July, the NCAA does give Michigan a notice of allegations, and they give Sharon Moore, because he was on the staff last year, a show cause. Can they then transfer immediately? The
No.
players? No.
Only if they can only enter the portal if their coach leaves. But I still don't think you can transfer and be eligible immediately for the same season.
Mm,
You can enter the portal and then leave during after the season's over.
okay.
I mean, I guess you could leave, but you're not eligible.
Okay. I was just curious.
Is my understanding. And then also, a show cause for Sharon Moore does not mean automatic termination.
Mm-mm.
If you're already on the staff, that doesn't really apply to you.
Okay.
Like it would apply if you went and tried to get another job.
I was just curious if you knew. It was actually a discussion I was having because my believe it or not, my wife asked me. She's like, "Why would anybody want to stay if they're going to get all these bad things happen to them?" And I said, "Well, we don't know when that's going to happen,
Right.
and with the transfer way you can transfer these days, and so it was just I really couldn't answer her, and I didn't. It was late, so I was tired and chasing my kids.
I do think if the news that came out yesterday, and take it with a grain of salt, but if the news that came out yesterday is accurate, which is now that they're now being looked at for lack of institutional control, there's no death penalty on the table, but lack of institutional control is about as bad as he can get without the death penalty. I don't know if we're gonna have resolution that soon.
Okay.
I mean, if you look at the same timeline that took place with the most recent thing, then you'd be getting an NOA in September. But if they're truly expanding the investigation right now, as some people suggest, and again, take it with a grain of salt, it's going to prolong that.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's we're at the 45-minute mark, folks, and so that was just something that was on my mind, so I just wanted to ask. But Dan, any last words, man? Thanks for doing my fun game at the beginning of the show with JJ McCarthy.
No, I'm curious as to how many points you had us giving up and what the average points per game is, because I think you had us giving up more points than we did last year.
Well, here, let me look. I can do math really quick. So I had 3, 0, and then 17 to Marshall. So that'd be 20, 10 to Michigan State, 30, 9 to Iowa, 39, and then 20 to Oregon. So 59, 6 to Nebraska. So that's
that was 49. Went from 29 to 49.
Right? 49, yeah. So 55 with Nebraska, 13 to Purdue, so that's 68. 6 to Northwestern, so 74. 20 to Indiana, 94, and then none to Michigan.
You had did you have the 31 in there?
Oh, 31 Penn State, yeah. So
I
125.
I think you got us giving up more points than last year.
125 is the total.
Right about the same.
Yeah.
Right about the same. Yeah.
But it's because of the Oregon game and the Penn State game. Like, I think Oregon can score on us.
Yeah.
And the Penn State game, it's just because Penn State scares me to death ever since the Saquon Barkley era.
Yeah. Well, one thing for sure is that one or two of these games are going to be a lot closer than they should.
Yep. All right, guys. Well, it's been Friday. It's not a real Buckeye Friday because there's no game this weekend, but hope you guys are enjoying the NFL draft. Watch our Buckeyes get drafted. Congratulations to Marvin Harrison Jr., the 4th pick overall in the draft, another top wide receiver taken from the Ohio State University. You guys have a good weekend. Stay safe out there. And as always, go Bucks.
Go Bucks.